You're all from the Capitol? Plutarch got you out?
Don't expect much chit-chat from him. Capitol cut his tongue out years ago. And no, it wasn't any sort of rescue, if that's what you mean. We all fled on our own. For this. For you. This is my assistant, Masala.
Natalie Dormer's left her period pieces behind to shave her head and even tattoo her face for her latest character, Cressida, in The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1. I asked her about the attraction of playing a strong woman on the big screen.
You know, the beauty of playing a strong woman is not the absence of fear, it's how she overcomes it, as is epitomized by Jen Lawrence with Katniss Everdeen. You know, it's that you fear, but you find the courage in your way through it, which is a story people want to hear because they want to know how to navigate their own lives.
Sure.
And the beautiful thing about The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 is there are characters that are sort of gender irrelevant. President Coin or Cressida could have very easily been male roles because it's about their personalities and not their gender. And that's really refreshing and great in such a successful movie.
Sure. Now, what do you think, Cressida, why do you think she is driven to join this and give up all the luxury she had?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Cressida is described as being part of Plutarch's underground. So her and her camera crew come from the Capitol. And there's obviously, we discussed it as a group, you know, as actors trying to find our motivation. But Evan Ross, Eldon Henson, Wes Chatham and myself were like, you know, something's obviously happened to our families. We've obviously suffered the wrath of President Snow and his government. There's been violence, there's been abuse, there's been torture of some description within our family sphere to motivate, or we've seen stuff that has motivated us to galvanize the populace against this tyrannical government.
Okay, and how getting into your character, playing her, how much did, you know, the tattoos and the shaved head and the costumes, how much did that help you embody who Cressida is?
Yeah, it's interesting. As an actor, some roles you find from the inside out and some roles you find from the outside in. The difference of having just, you know, 2 weeks before my head got shaved, I was playing Marjorie Terrell, so I'm sitting in long skirts with a long flowing wig, and I just kind of feel feminine and floaty, even though she's steel underneath. And then to play Cressida, you know, to have your head shaved, an incredible tattoo put on you, to be handed a semi-automatic rifle, army boots, and combat fatigues, it changes the physicality and the way you move immediately, and kind of gives you a different feel, which was very useful to finding the rest of her internally.
All right, we mentioned physicality. You spent 6 months on the Old Vic stage. How much did doing that, you know, theater work, were you able to bring to your film and television work?
That's a lovely question to be asked. I'm a theatre actress first and foremost, so stamina and being fit in a cardiovascular way is actually quite important. And so I would liken this shoot to being stage work because we had quite a physically demanding shoot for 9 months. And you know, on the stage your adrenaline is at a very high level every night. And I was also training for a marathon whilst I was shooting this movie, so I was probably other than when I've done really intensive stage work, I was probably the fittest I've ever been in my life. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and you'll see a lot more of that in Mockingjay Part 2, but enjoy this one first.
And we'll be right back.
Coming up.
Can't live the same old life and expect a different result.
A self-published motivational book touches lives like no book ever has. But no one can find the author. Sylvester Stallone, Kira Sedgwick, and Terry Crews join an all-star cast in Reach Me, next, here on Arise on Screen.
You are him, aren't you?
I almost died today.
We all have fears. There's the fear of failure.
Don't you think I want to work for Frank all my life?
When you're on a mission, nothing else matters. Not food, not hygiene, not women. You're a finger painting. Be a masterpiece.
Reach Me is a film with an interesting premise. It's about a self-published motivational book that becomes a global phenomenon, but by an author who refuses to reveal his or herself. Hi, I'm Mike Sargent, and this is Arise on Screen. With me in the studio are still Bobby Rivers and Ziba Blay. Now, Bobby, I'm going to go to you first because I think you, like me, saw the potential of this film and what this director was trying to do.
But I think the script was a little bit jumbled. It needed more focus, but it had some good performances in it.
It had some very good performances.
I think Sylvester Stallone gave one of his best performances I've seen in years, since Copland.
I agree with you 100%. I can see why he wanted to do the film.
Right.
Because it was a departure from him. There was nothing physical about the role.
He plays a political news journalist, and a very tough guy, and he was really good. But I think this was the kind of film that Altman used to do better because you had various stories.
Good comparison, yeah. And again, I thought that the different storylines and how they came together, I got it. It was a little heavy-handed at certain points.
Right.
But I thought the intent of this film was good, and what some of the things he had to say and the commentary was good. Now, on the other hand, Ziba, who's waiting patiently, she says she needed an editor.
She's got that look in her eye.
A director. So Ziba, you didn't like this movie that much. You didn't think the premise even worked?
To say that I didn't like this movie is like the biggest understatement ever.
Whoa!
It's funny, you're right. It is an interesting premise, but a good premise does not make a movie. And I think that's what the filmmakers forgot with this one. You have a good idea. You have a great cast. You're right. Stallone is amazing in this. Kevin Conner, everyone is good. Thomas Jane, but you don't know what story you're trying to tell. You want to give us these little, Hallmark cards. Yeah, whose movie is it? Is it an action movie? Is it a romance? Is it a drama? What are you trying to do? And, mixing genres and telling various stories all in one movie can be really great. As you say, with Altman, I'm thinking, a movie like Magnolia does it really well. Here, or Crash, yes, but here it's just you like the idea of one day, but you don't know what's going on.
So you felt it fell underneath the weight of its own uneven tone.
Of its own ideas, yeah.
And you said it was tone deaf. Okay. Now, I got to say, I have to say, of performances, I definitely think Kevin Connolly, and I think you mentioned this, his is the most developed and character. There's a sequence in there where he's got to learn how to quit smoking, and I completely bought it.
Yeah.
I bought that whole sequence there. I thought Nelly, there was a bit of a cliche, but I thought he was a revelation.
I want to see him do more acting. Well, you're laughing, Ziba.
I don't know.
You weren't feeling Nelly.
It's Nelly. It's hot in here. I can't take him seriously. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Can't take him seriously. That sounds like a movie. All right, so you didn't like Nelly's performance in it, but you did like Kevin Connolly, and you said you liked Stallone in this.
I thought Stallone, you're right. He gives one of his best performances in years.
He does.
All right, well, so would you recommend? That was sarcasm. And you, Bobby?
I recommend it to hardcore Stallone fans to see what he can do. He's not just the action guy.
I'd recommend it. It's worth seeing, in my opinion. It is flawed, but it's worth seeing.
All right.
Our final film is called The King and the Mockingbird, having gone from Mockingjay. This is a film that influenced animators around the globe, and this latest release of this classic French animated film has been over 50 years in the making.
Ils sont unis. Ils sont unis. Le visage de la petite reine resplendit de bonheur. Écoutez la voix de l'assistance au comble de l'enthousiasme criant « Longue vie à leur majesté !» Longue vie à leur majesté!
Now, this is a film that I think I'd heard about it for a long time. I'd seen clips of it. And what a brilliant film. I can see why it influenced so many animators.
Can't you?
Especially people like Miyazaki.
Yeah.
It's got a really great surreality to it. It's flights of fancy that have nothing to do with the time period that it's in. Now, Ziba, you were very impressed with this movie.
I absolutely loved it. I think any lover of animation, this is a film that you should see, you need to see, because like you said, you see so many of the seeds that would later on grow in other filmmakers in films like The Illusionist or in Triplets of Belleville.
I mentioned that, but yes,
even the look of the characters.
Right. Yeah.
It's dreamy, it's poetic, it's political, it's very French. And you could see the influence it had on Triplets of Belleville. I always also wonder if this was influenced by the Fleischer brothers, who in the 1930s gave us Popeye, Betty Boop, and the 1939 feature-length animated film, Gulliver's Travels.
I agree. Well, I think all animation was influenced at that time by the Fleischer Brothers because I think what they were doing was revolutionary.
Right.
Just that constant.
And they don't get as much mention as Disney.
This is very true. This is very true. But I thought one of the things I really enjoyed about this is how, and this is what I like about Miyazaki films, is that I had no idea where the story was going.
Oh.
I really, because I'm not familiar with the Hans Christian Andersen story that it's based on, but I loved how it starts one place and then it goes someplace else, and then you think it's a dream, but then the dream actually kicks the ass of reality,
yes.
and you're like, what? So, and I really enjoyed that surreal aspect.
And that's what makes it timeless, when you don't have a story that's so easy to predict, when anything can happen on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Fans of substantial animation with a good story should see this.
I agree. Well, I have to say that it has been a lot of fun talking with both of you here.
Great to be here.
Bobby Rivers. Bobby Rivers.
Night Sergeant.
You'll be here all week?
I'll tip your waitress.
All right. And Ziba Blay, once again, I loved having you.
Always a pleasure.
All right. And we'll be back. I'm Mike Sargent, and we'll be back next week to talk more movies here on Arise on Screen.